Good afternoon. How are you today? I decided to take a walk by the canal near the Potomac, where these boats used to go up and down through the channels, and that was commerce then. The channels barely exist, although you can see the indentation in the earth and some of the old buildings that were here. But now it's basically a nature trail for walking, running, riding a bike, and a horse. So I thought I'd come over here and see if I could see any colors. The vistas are pretty impressive, so that's always nice about coming over here. Looking at the political horizon, you have to be concerned when Biden is going to Oregon to campaign, when we've had spreads of like 16 points favoring Democrats in the state. So I consider that a bad sign. I don't know what his thinking is, but obviously his thinking is that there's a challenge there, and he feels he has to go there to help the Democrats. Another exciting thing, I think, that further demonstrates how outrageous the situation was on January the 6th was that they had to have troops and defense and protection, but they couldn't get it. And it turns out that Pelosi's son took some films of his mom trying to get help, and they're riveting because they show the futility of getting help to save the hill while Trump is the president responsible to make that happen. There was one particular conversation in which Chuck Schumer and Speaker Pelosi were on the phone with the acting Attorney General. And this is the same one that was involved in resisting Trump's efforts to send a letter to Georgia to build a protest mechanism by which Trump hoped he'd get the time and then corruptly he would be elected, though he lost the election himself. And he kept saying, oh, you have to ask the president, you have to ask the president. So there we have, we are on notice that Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and I worked for him for a while, and when he's determined, he's really determined, and he was that day, and I think Pence helped as well. But any other president who had not started the riot in the first place would have quelled it immediately when he saw the, quote, demonstration got out of hand. But Trump never expected a demonstration. He expected to overtake the government. That's why he wanted to be on the Hill. He probably saw himself holding and waving a QAnon flag with the QAnon music in the background, and people kidnapping the speaker and perhaps hanging the vice president of the United States. So that's a pretty sad statement about where we stood. The things that traveled from that afterwards were, well, it appears the Secret Service that was being recruited by Trump to help him go up to the Hill and lead the charge like he was some latter-day TR, except the Hill in this case was Capitol Hill, not San Juan Hill. And it wasn't justified because it was a war against our own government, nothing less. And the fact that it was a war against our own government suggests that he has no business leading or continuing to be able to run for office in the United States. And that's Article 14, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution. So, what is the feeling that we all have these days? I have a pleasant one now walking here. And it's a little more crowded than my normal walk. But a little more crowded means I've seen 3 or 4 people. You may be familiar with the notion of a limiter, a decibel limiter, which is that decibel measuring the audibility, the power of a signal. And if it's so loud, your own ears cut it out. I think we're at a point where we have so many politicians including the ones, quote, on our side, who wring their hands at the latest terrible thing Trump does and celebrate the good things that happen for us. Like, oh, the Supreme Court won't look at Trump's appeal. Yeah, but it's still just process. He hasn't been charged. He hasn't been indicted. He's still out there committing crimes. There's no machinery to do him before the midterm elections, and that's just not acceptable. He should be removed, and he should at least be indicted and charged, and he hasn't been indicted or charged. So we're anxious that that happen. The contempt proceeding, if they move it quickly enough, as I've said already, then we could have something like a Bannon situation. Although you and I know that the sticking point is the guy in the Department of Justice who's posing as the Attorney General, who seems immovable to act. And he has some highfalutin secret reservation that he can't dare tell us because he doesn't want to upset the left, the right, the people in the middle. Well, just enforce the damn law. That would be a really good place to start. So what I imagine is we hear people talk, as I did today, Saturday, saying how wrong things are and how this is really terrible. But I don't hear it anymore because it's the same thing. It's allegation upon allegation, evidence upon evidence, and it's never enough to actually act upon it. Tell me that there is not one lawyer in the huge Department of Justice who could sit down and write in 4 hours a beautifully written indictment against Trump. It's just not possible. Of course there's somebody there. So why doesn't it happen? Because they don't want it to happen. The nice question as this goes on is Garland going to do nothing before the election and after the election? I told you, my friends who are straining our relationship, they say, oh, he's going to do it. No, he's not. He's a coward. He's a milquetoast. He sits in a corner. He has no business being called a prosecutor or an attorney general. He's a shame and a disgrace. Okay, there I said it. Everybody just walks around this issue. And he's not the only one. We have people up and down the East Coast who are not doing what they should do. So what are we to do? We, the voters. I don't know if you went to the March on Washington with when women protested after Trump was, quote, elected. And Gloria Steinem spoke, and she said, we're all here together today, and we're not going to stay away now. We're going to stay at this until we get it done. And in the current issue of Vanity Fair, she said, don't worry what the top are doing, because change grows from the bottom up, which is a variation on my teaching belief that we, the people, in the end, make the difference for the better. And we just yammer away more effectively than the politicians, talking about how we get to the ballot box and how we're going to make a difference for a change, because it's absolutely necessary. And we are the last line of defense, I think. And the Democrats are not. The organization Democrats, they have this whole issue about the democracy, third and fourth down the list. Where are they talking about lies and so forth? I will give credit to the local Congresswoman, Jennifer Wexton, whom I've known for some time. She's a member of Congress. She's run twice before. She's running against a right-wing nut who insists on wearing military garb in his ads and so forth. She's a she served as a judge. She was a state senator. She's familiar with passing legislation. And she's worked in the Congress. Why would you trade such a good public servant for some yahoo? And we have 299 of these yahoos across the country. People who defeated Republicans in primaries so that the yahoos could run the Congress and state houses. It's a difficult time. But I hold firm to the belief that if we, like we did the last time, crawl over shattered glass to get to the polls and to vote for Democrats, we can do it. Now, what does do it mean? Well, it may mean just the Senate. It can mean preserving the House. But if we don't do it, who is going to do it? So here I am, and I am in a neighboring cathedral of green in the trees, and I will talk to you tomorrow, probably on my own pathway. Bye-bye.